Welcome, Dungeon Dwellers, to another volume of the Archive. This time, we're back with our friends from System Sacom, or SACOM. I made that joke in the Lunacy video, but I've since seen their name written out in Japanese. In this game that we're covering today, in fact, and yeah, their name is pronounced SACOM. What do you know? Anyway, we're looking at Iblard, Laputa no Kaeru Machi, which translates to Iblard, the city of hatching Laputa. And if the word Laputa looks familiar because you've seen a certain Studio Ghibli film, well, that's not entirely coincidental, because Studio Ghibli has something tangentially to do with this game. Speaking of tangents, I always thought Laputa was a word made up by Miyazaki, but it's actually the name of a fictional floating island from Jonathan Swift's novel, Gulliver's Travels. Pazu does mention at one point early in the movie the name is from an old book. I never took that literally though. Neat. Anyway, let's talk about this video game. Iblard is a first-person puzzle adventure released on October 16, 1997 for the PS1 exclusively in Japan. However, an English fan translation from Espernight is available, so you can try the game out for yourself if you're interested. It's a fairly short experience, clocking in at probably about 3 hours on your first playthrough, as long as you don't get too stuck on any of the puzzles. They're fairly easy to figure out though, mostly involving exploration, so it's not too bad. The game begins with an introductory cutscene, explaining that Iblard is a magical land of floating islands where many magic users reside. And it's almost comforting to hear that System Sacom still have not figured out how to balance audio in cutscenes. What? In Iblard, you play as an unnamed protagonist who sucks at keeping his houseplants alive. Talk about an everyman. It really could be any one of us. In an old storybook left behind by his grandfather, our MC reads about Laputa, floating islands that are living things that actually grow and develop. As the islands grow bigger, they shed layers, like a snake molting its skin. These left-behind Laputa shells, as they're referred to, are magical items that stimulate plant growth. Reflecting on his own ineffectual plant care, he wishes Laputa shells were real. And then comes face to face with a few characters from the storybook. A woman, a frog person, and a mole man. How he suddenly found himself out here on the street when he was just standing in his apartment several floors up will forever remain a mystery of continuity. Shit. So these three escape in their airship, leaving behind a blue jewel that calls a strange tram car. And our boy just hops aboard and is whisked off to the magical land of Iblard. Well, you know, they just had to get things underway. No faffing about in the boring real world. I'm fine with it. I mean, it makes the whole thing funnier. We arrive at a place called Sima Station, and after seeing another tram car pull up on an opposite platform, the game hints that our goal is to find a way over to it. And we're off. Unlike Lunacy and the Mansion of Hidden Souls games, which were FMV adventures where we moved from node to node through static backgrounds, Iblard is a real-time 3D adventure where we control our character directly. One of the biggest issues you'll probably run into if you try to play Iblard yourself is the controls and movement. It doesn't make use of the dual analog controller, which, in its defense, had only been introduced in Japan in April of '97, just 6 months prior to the game's release, and many PS1 games wouldn't make use of analog controls for another couple of years. Some never did. Some PS2 launch titles didn't even use the joysticks. I'm looking at you, Armored Core 2 and Eternal Ring. So we move forward and back with up and down on the D-pad. Left and right look in those directions. L1 and R1 strafe. You have to hold L2 and press triangle or X to look up and down. But just tap the buttons, because if you hold them, you end up looking either straight up or straight down with little control. And don't let go of L2 because your view snaps back to center. It's definitely archaic, but I don't have much to say about it. I'm like a master of these clunky first-person 3D games from the 32-bit era. I mean, this is just what I grew up with. I played so many games that control like this. Jumping Flash, Kingsfield, Echo Knight, Shadow Tower, Armored Core. I don't even bat an eye at the awkwardness of it all. Yeah, it's not great, but there's this core muscle memory that kicks in whenever I run into these kinds of control schemes. I can just wrestle with it and make it my bitch. Most of the time. The gameplay is mostly exploration and puzzle solving, but there are enemies. Early on, you find a boomerang weapon to deal with them, but all of them are either flying or low to the ground, so you will have to make use of the game's clunky look mechanics sometimes. These bats in Stage 2 are the worst. I ended up getting lucky hits on a couple of them and then just running and hoping for the best after that. A certain enemy that appears throughout the game needs to be defeated using items, rather than hitting them with your boomerang. These are the Megizo, elephant-like creatures that radiate an aura of sadness that damages you. Interestingly, their name is a portmanteau of the Japanese words for discouraged and elephant, Megeru and Zo, thus Megizo. You have to use a broom to get rid of them. We'll learn more about the whys of that later on in the story. Some obstacles that can't be defeated also appear in certain areas. Like in the first stage, there are giant stones that float around. They can knock you out of the way and even push you into water if you're not paying attention. A couple of levels have platforming or jumping sections. The game does do the jumping flash thing of automatically pointing the camera down so you can see where you're landing while you're in the air, so that's nice. But it can still be annoying judging your positioning at times. Again, I didn't have too much trouble, but I totally understand if this aspect of the game makes you miserable, or motion sick. Luckily, falling into the void only reduces your health by 1 and resets you at a checkpoint within the level. You have a life bar represented by these green crystals on the top right of the screen. The same crystals are found around levels or hanging in high places where they need to be knocked down with the boomerang. Collecting them will restore some of your health, and they're plentiful, so health management isn't too bad. As for the puzzles, they mostly involve interacting with objects to open certain paths or collecting key items to progress. The game is broken up into 10 short areas, with a couple of them needing to be revisited later in the game for a total of 12 stages. They're all fairly linear, with only a few branching paths leading to different objectives. You also find maps of each stage very close to the start, so it's almost impossible to get lost. So the gameplay is all rather straightforward. But the presentation is where Iblard shines. Each stage is colorful, whimsical, and unique. The world of Iblard is filled with all sorts of wonders, and sometimes I just took the time to admire the scenery. There's always something to gawk at or stop and wonder of. Tapping R2 hides or reveals the HUD too, so you can get it out of the way if you want a more immersive experience. The graphics may be simple, and the PlayStation 1's affine texture mapping may be making the world look like a breathing, undulating thing, but therein lies the charm. However, a lot of the credit for the game's look and atmosphere needs to be given to Naohisa Inoue, an artist who created the world of Iblard in a series of surreal, impressionist-inspired paintings mostly throughout the 80s and 90s. Each stage in Iblard is based on one of Inoue's paintings, and most of the characters are taken from some of the human figures in certain paintings. You can even find renditions of his work hanging in each stage, usually giving a hint on how to solve a puzzle or expanding on the game's story. Inoue is credited for original work, art, and texture in the game's credits. The guy made an early habit of branching out into other media with his work, releasing art books, comics, story collections, all based around his fantasy setting. If you've ever seen the 1998 Ghibli film, Whisper of the Heart, these lush, dreamlike landscapes should be familiar. The backgrounds for the dream sequences in that film were painted by Inoue for Studio Ghibli and based on some of his more well-known works, like this one, titled Upward Draft, which has become synonymous with the film and adorns the title screen of this game. Ghibli would even give Inoue a chance to direct a short film of his own produced by the studio called Ibarado Jikan, or Iblard Time, released in 2007. It's mainly a series of still, panning images of his paintings, digitally enhanced with features like moving objects, reflective water, and sometimes animated characters. There's no dialogue or story. It's more of a relaxing art piece. With a 30-minute runtime, it's more of a curiosity than essential Studio Ghibli viewing, but I thought it was enjoyable. You can track down a DVD or Blu-ray copy secondhand, or find it on Internet Archive if you're curious. And if you've played the game, many of the scenes will look familiar. Upward Draft makes an appearance in the Iblard game with a level of the same name. That's the one where you're jumping between platforms, being boosted by those drafts. The Megizo also feature prominently in many of his paintings. I think this whole collaboration is really neat though, and I find it fascinating that this world that he captured snapshots of with his paintings is so fleshed out. It's hard to find a lot of information in English, but the Japanese Wikipedia entry for Iblard mentions Inoue's inspirations for his fantasy world. Chief among them was his hometown of Ibaraki City in Osaka, as well as the neighboring cities of Suita and Takatsuki. The name Iblard was inspired by writer Kenji Miyazawa's fictional setting for many of his stories, Ihatovu. Side note, there's a Super Famicom game set in Ihatovu that retells many of Miyazawa's short stories and may be the topic of a bonus video sometime in the future. Back to the game, I need to mention the music as well while we're talking about the presentation here, which was composed by Naoki Jimbo. He's done a lot of sound work and theme composing throughout the years, but hasn't been the main composer on all that many games. His work on Iblard is amazing though. This is such a great soundtrack, and the breezy, light melodies fit the mood of the world perfectly. As much as I was stopping just to admire certain parts of the stages, I was also enjoying listening to the music while doing so. While wandering the first stage, we'll see some black ships fly overhead. These are the antagonists of the game, from the eastern kingdom of Takatsung. For now, they just kind of hover around menacingly, but we'll get up close and personal with them later. We also meet the mole man from earlier, whose name is Shopello, and learn the only way for us to return to our world is to find a Laputa as it hatches. This will create a rift in space-time, allowing us to jump through. For more details on that, though, we'll need to speak to Shopello's friend, Melkinso, who lives in the forest. On our way, we run into a forest guardian, but unfortunately can't understand his language. In the following stage, we find out dinosaurs are also part of Iblard, and they can be placated with watermelon. Melkinso's house is on an island in the middle of a large pond in the forest, with seemingly no way to get there. However, our path leads us to a cave that passes through and under the pond, with many waterfalls to pass through separating areas. I really liked this stage. The puzzles were fun, and the scenery started to feel more exotic and surreal at this point. We eventually find our way to Melkinso's house, who turns out to be the frog person we saw in the beginning of the game. It's here we learn of 5 ores that are needed to bring about the birth of a Laputa. Shopello, Melkinso, and Nina, the woman we saw earlier, had already collected them when they were attacked by the Takatsung, and the ores fell from their ship. One of those ores was located in our world, which is why they were there in the first place. The Takatsung want to use the ores to create a Megizo so powerful it can absorb all the magic from the magicians of Iblard. The ores are scattered around the world now, so it's up to us to find them. Not only to help out the Iblardians, but also to get home. So we're off to Nina's shop to see if we can get a lead on the locations of the lost ores. Melkinso and Shopello also lend us an airship to travel between stages, and it fits in our pocket when we're not using it. Neat. The stage leading to Nina's shop probably has my favorite music in the entire game. Here we need to shrink damaging mushrooms by connecting and turning on street lamps, as well as use bouncy mushrooms to traverse to different parts of the level. We meet Nina and find out the forest guardian is named Bergalad, and he'll be helpful on our journey if we can find some way to speak with him. She then marks the locations of the ores on our map, which is really just a story thing. We can't choose where we're going, and we'll come across all of the ores on our way through the stages. But there's one thing about this that bothers me. If Nina and her friends lost the ores to begin with, and she knows where they all dropped, what the hell has she been doing this whole time? Especially knowing the Takatsung are searching for these ores, hoping to create a Megizo that can absorb all magic. Isn't this kind of a world-ending scenario for her? She didn't even know we had followed her to Iblard until we showed up just now. Like, what are you doing, lady? It would have been better if she didn't know the locations, and we just happened to find them throughout the stages because video game. I mean, I could actually accept that more easily. And it makes Nina and her friends look less like knuckleheads. Anyway, the first ore is... I don't know why I'm harping on that so much. It's a small thing, but it really bugs me. The first ore is at Kinona's house on a nearby hilltop. It's quite a stunning location, and one where the skybox really shows off the beauty of Inoue's paintings. We get an upgrade to our boomerang here, which we'll need to fight against a Takatsung ship that attacks us. After that, we meet Kinona, who hands over the first ore. You may also notice that he looks shockingly similar to our protagonist. Well, apparently our world and Iblard are like two sides of the same coin, so there could be a lot of people who have analogs between the two worlds. Also, can I just say, I love Nona's little atelier here. What a view, man. Our next stop is the upward draft stage that I mentioned earlier. We get shot out of the sky here by the Takatsung and are forced to platform through this area. This is probably the most confusingly laid out and frustrating stage of the game, but the atmosphere is still incredible, so I kind of forgive it. The final bit, where you need to strafe left and right to avoid these spinning mini planets while on a moving platform, is a pain though. The next stage is the Night Sky Market, which is also a magical setting. The street stalls and shops, coupled with the Twilight skybox, makes everything look so cozy. I want to pop into all these little places along the road, especially the planet shop, where we'll need to grab some microplanets to solve a puzzle. Unfortunately, our path is blocked by a larger than usual Megizo here, and we'll need to make use of 3 strategically placed brooms to get it out of the way. We also get a bit of backstory about our main character. He's a loner who'd rather water flowers than hang out with friends. Nina says if we can find a decipher stone, we can speak to Bergalad in the forest, who will give us the extra push we need to be more assertive. And what do you know? We happen to find a decipher stone right on our path to the ore that landed in the night market. When we grab that ore, we're warped back to the forest, and can use the stone to understand the Forest Guardian Bergalad's language. We tell him that we keep brushing off the Megizo, but he says we can't keep brushing them off. Do you get it? Because they're incarnations of self-doubt, and we can't just keep brushing off our insecurities. Get it? We use brooms to brush them off. Do you get it? Do you get it? So instead of that, we need to open our heart to them and embrace our true self. It's all very on the nose, but I kind of like it. Very fairy tale child's fable-like. It's fun. Anyway, after our pep talk from Bergalad, he fixes the crashed tram car nearby and we're off to the Laputa nest. Here we need to place the 4 ores we've collected so far, but we're still missing one. It's at a nearby airport, and apparently the Takatsung are on the trail too. After speaking to Nina, Mekinso, and Chopello, we get a scene inside the Takatsung airship and get a face to our main antagonist. And what a face it is. We're once again shot out of the sky by the enemy, but we get revenge with our upgraded boomerang. Unfortunately, it breaks after beating the first ship, so we collect some matches and a rocket and fire that off at our other pursuer. In the wreckage, we meet the bad guy, who I don't think ever gets a name, and he just hands over a Solma stone, which is needed to basically defeat the Megizo. Though he says this isn't a surrender, but he just flies away, and we never see the Takatsung again. So you're not surrendering, but you just gave me the thing I need to overcome the Megizo, and you don't have any of the ores you need to do your giant Megizo plan. So... We hop aboard this sick Nausicaa-inspired plane, grab the final ore, and fly back to the Laputa nest to place it. However, we need to open our heart to the Megizo before we can continue. So we do that, and then everyone just stares at each other awkwardly. And we place the last ore. A Laputa is born, sheds its shell, and we fly our plane through the rift in space-time that opens up. Along the way, we grab a part of its shell and return to our world. The Laputa shell not only revitalizes our houseplants, it turns the whole apartment complex into some sort of green architecture exhibit. Wonderful. After beating the game, we unlock this music video with a song from an artist named Duka that uses what looks like prototype footage from the game. The song and visuals are pleasant, and that's the word I'd use to describe this entire experience. Pleasant. Unless, of course, you can never get over those controls. Iblard is a short trip, but there's so much feeling and care put into the world that I find myself wanting to spend more time in it. And that's how I feel looking at Inoue's paintings too. They're windows into this incredible world that I'd love to exist in. I want to sit in these places, walk down these roads, see beyond the edges of the frame. It all just feels so cozy. Iblard as a game is nothing much to write home about. A simple, clumsy-to-control puzzle adventure. But Iblard as an experience is magical. And as a part of this larger multimedia investigation into the creations of Naohisa Inoue, it's a fascinating work, definitely an enjoyable way to spend an afternoon. And that's it for Iblard, the city of hatching Laputa. I hope you enjoyed it. These bonus archive things are a nice break from the heavy workload of the regular videos. And I like having these simpler projects that are just, amongst us. It's a way of saying thanks for the support to all of you, but also something I have a lot of fun making. So look forward to more weird little excursions in the future. Until then, Iblard, the game, the paintings, the books, the short film, check it out. Dungeon Chill, out.